Borderlands 4 is one of those games that I would really like to see succeed for the Nintendo Switch 2, because there is a huge audience for a game like Borderlands 4, and putting the Nintendo Switch 2 in front of that audience is a good thing for us fans of the Nintendo Switch 2. But also, if it becomes a good port and it runs well and it plays well and it gets great reviews, it might bring other third-party publishers as far as to bringing their games to the Nintendo Switch 2. But in light of recent events, there are actually a few things about the game that I'm really concerned about. Hi there, fellow Nintendo gamers, I'm Veggie Vulture, and today I want to talk about Borderlands 4 on the Nintendo Switch 2 and a few concerns that I have for the game. Actually, there's three main concerns that I have for Borderlands 4 on the Nintendo Switch 2, and that is in light of a recent tweet by Randy Pitchford, one of the leading developers, people behind the actual game Borderlands 4, among others, the Nintendo Switch 2. And I'm of course talking about this tweet by Randy Pitchford, an important message regarding to the Nintendo Switch 2 version of Borderlands 4. And he does this video, I'm not gonna watch it in this video, but he does this video, link in the description below by the way, where he acts like there's this kind of bad news about the version not being ready or whatever, and then bam, he drops a release date, which by the way is only 2 or 3 weeks behind the Xbox and the PlayStation 5 versions of the game, which for a Nintendo fan is actually the same as releasing it on the same day, because we are kind of used of everything releasing like 6, 8 and sometimes months and sometimes a year later, so this is good news. Now, Randy Pitchford seems to be like a super funny guy, super charismatic spokesperson for the game, which is great and all. Now, there's not any bad news or any concerns in this video. The concern that I have, there's actually two main concerns that come out of this tweet and the responses to some of the questions from the people below this tweet. That's where it actually happens, right? So, right here, there's actually two things that I want to talk about. The first thing that I want to talk about is his, it's right here. So somebody asks, Chill Casual Tony asks, will it run at 60 frames per second? Now, Randy Pitchford, I cannot find the source, but I know Randy Pitchford or at least the creators, some creators behind Borderlands 4 have said that yes, it's gonna target 60 frames per second. But now Randy comes in and he says it was important to us to not cut out anything and to support crossplay with other platforms. Really important one, because that is my last bit. My last concern. So no, it will be mostly around 30 frames per second with some dips in some intense moments, heavy combats, or if hosting a multiplayer game in handheld mode, etc. Now this really concerns me. When they said a few months ago, like it's gonna target 60 frames per second because the Switch 2 is super powerful and yada yada yada, DLSS, all that jazz. I was like, yeah, is it though? It's probably gonna target 60 frames per second, but it's not gonna make that, which I'm okay with. I mean, the Switch 2 is not a powerhouse like the other consoles are, and it is a handheld gaming device that you can also play docked. For me, that's what the Switch is. It's a handheld gaming device that you can also play docked. It's not a home console you can play handheld. It's a handheld gaming device that you can play docked. So I was always like, yeah, no, I much rather have a performance mode that gives us a steady 40 frames per second than you give me like a shitty 60 frames per second, right? Now they're saying it targets 30, well, it will be mostly 30 frames per second, which I'm okay with ish. Like, I don't have as big as a problem as some other people with 30 frames per second, as long as it's a steady 30 frames per second. If a game is 30 frames, it needs to be 30 frames, not 32, not 28, 30, and it needs to be steady for me personally. That is what makes a game like playable and feel smooth even at 30 frames per second. Like I remember Warframe on the Nintendo Switch 1 ran at 30 frames per second. As long as it was running at 30, it was actually feeling really good, and then it dropped to like 26, 25, sometimes even lower, I know, and then it just started not feeling as good. So 30 is really, I don't know. But then he says, with some dips in some intense moments, heavy combats, or hosting a multiplayer game in handheld mode. Now, I don't know if he means with this, because grammatically he's saying like intense moments, heavy combats, and hosting a multiplayer game in handheld mode. So all of this in handheld mode. I don't know if he's saying like It's gonna run better, smoother, and docked. Now, I guess it's gonna run better and smoother and docked. This is the kind of game I would probably mostly play docked. By the way, I'm gonna buy this game, and if you want to see me review it, put it in the comments below. Like, yes, I want you to review it. But having dips below 30 frames per second really, really, really worries me when it comes to this game. And I don't know, I still have my hopes up for them to bring, at least in docked, to bring in a performance mode in docked for 40 frames per second, steady 40 frames per second, which is like cutting out some graphical fidelity out of the game. Like, I don't know, the game Cyberpunk, it runs at 40 frames per second almost. It has like, it is graphically looking still in performance mode, still looking pretty damn good, even in docked, like on a big ass screen on your Switch 2. It looks really, really good, but it can run at 40 frames per second. It runs really, really well. If they can do it, I think Borderlands 4 can also do it. And it's really weird to me that they say it was important to us to not cut out anything. What does that mean? I mean, other games succeed in still having the same amount of content. They just cut out like graphical fidelity out of the game. They blur out some of the backgrounds. You just don't have as much far as a render distance when you're playing on Switch 2. These are all things that most Switch 2 players are okay with. We Switch 2 players want frames. We don't need graphical fidelity to be as high as PlayStation 5. We don't need it to be as high as the Xbox Series X or whatever. We need it to run smooth and then maybe look a little bit less good than the other consoles. We're okay with that. We're used to that. That's okay. It's perfectly fine. Please, please, for the love of God, give us a performance mode at 40 frames per second. I really, really want that. I hope it's not as bad as this tweet. This really concerns me. Dips below 30 are not, for me, not really playable. Then there's a few other questions, and another concern pops up, which is not as big as a concern for me, but for a lot of other people. And that is, somebody asks, somebody asks, good news there. Now also, please make the game less than 64 gigabytes on Switch 2 and put the game on the cart. Please do not use game keycards release. Do a game keycard release. Those are nothing better than wasting microplastics that will eventually end the human race. Okay, Mark is really being a delight today. Randy Pitchford says, it's a big game. There will be a download, even for physical copies. Now, does that mean that it is a digital, it is a game keycard, or does that mean that as much of the game that can be on the cartridge is on the cartridge and you need to download the rest? I don't know if I don't know which one. My guess is going to be a game key card. My guess it's going to be a game key card and you need to download the whole thing. But it might be a card which has like 64 gigs of the game on it, and then the rest you need to download, which would also suck. But yeah, that's just the reality of it. That's like a lot of games with PS5 and everything do that, right? You get like the disc, you put it in, and then it still needs like to download 40 gigabytes or whatever. I just think it might be a digital key card. Now, there is an upside of it being a key card. Let me just hear me out, right? Open world games really need fast hard drive speeds, right? And we know that open world games, with the render distance and all that stuff, they render in and they load in stuff while you're running through the open world. Open world games are the games that benefit the most from fast storage. The internal storage of the Nintendo Switch 2 is much faster still than the card. So even if there would be a physical edition of this, truly, absolutely 100% physical edition of this game, it would still it would run a little bit slower, potentially, than if you would install it, if you would have it digitally. A lot of games have this problem, by the way. The digital version just runs faster, smoother than the one on the cartridge. And with a game like Borderlands 4, I think it's important that like a lot of the assets of the game are on your internal hard drive, although it's going to probably take up a shit ton of space. Then the last concern of mine is something super specific, and not a lot of people will probably have a problem with this if it doesn't end up working that way, and that is the cross-play. A lot of games now are offering cross-platform, but there are little to no ways of communicating with the people you're playing with. Now, the old Borderlands games on the Nintendo Switch, and just the old Borderlands games, had cross-platform, right? And you could play PlayStation and Switch and Xbox together, and PC. You could play together with those people. But the game had a internal voice chat function for the game. It had it. But it just didn't work cross-platform, which absolutely sucks. For me, personally, my neighbor, great guy, lives a few houses down the street. He's a big PlayStation 5 guy, right? He's big on PlayStation 5. He loves his PlayStation 5. Rightfully so, by the way. Great console. And he's really big into Borderlands 4. He's like a huge Borderlands 4 fan. And he can't wait for the game. He's even like thinking about buying like the super secret edition or whatever it is. And I want to play with him. I told him, like, you're a Borderlands fan, right? And he was like, yeah. I was like, it's coming to Switch 2 and it's going to be crossplay. Want to play together? Yeah. I was like, oh, you play with your brother and you use PlayStation voice thingy, right? Yes, we do that. I was like, oh, okay. Then I hope the voice chat function of Borderlands 4 will be cross-platform as well as the gameplay, because that would kind of like be the solution to it. Because I was telling him, like, you can use Discord with like in your bot with your phone. I can use my phone with Discord with your bot, but then I have like audio coming from my television and audio from my friend in my ear and everything. I don't want that. I want to put on a headset and I want his voice and his brother's voice to come through these things, but I also want my game audio to come through that, and I want to be able to tweak that. I want my game audio and my voice audio to tweak that a little bit so I can actually just enjoy the game like that. And I'm really eager to play Borderlands 4 with my neighbor, and I really hope that they created a voice chat feature, voice over IP kind of feature to be completely cross-platform. I absolutely hope they did that, because it didn't work on the original Borderlands games on Switch. For example, Warframe, again, it has a voice feature that's just completely cross-platform. If you get into a party and you activate your voice, you can talk to the people that are in your party. And that's it for Borderlands 4 for today, for this video. I'm keeping a close eye on this game. I'm going to buy the game, I'm going to play the game, and I'm going to review the game on this channel. So make sure to subscribe if you want to see that, because I'm really excited still about the game. There are some concerns, but hey, that's just the nature of video gaming. And until next video, bye-bye.